Is the iPhone 14 going to look like this, or more like this? Apple is expected to launch a bunch of really exciting products in 2022, and some new leaks and rumors have emerged that sort of spill the beans on everything. So in this video, let's break down Apple's 2022 master plan, talk about all the exciting products we could see, and also some secret products that are finally going to launch that will change the iPhone forever. Now, you can't always believe all of these leaks and rumors about future unreleased Apple products, but even if only 70 to 80% of these rumors actually come true, 2022 is shaping up to be a really big year that could honestly be one of Apple's best years ever. We're expecting some all-new Apple Silicon, redesigned Macs, lots of redesigned Macs, new iPads, Apple Watches, and of course, the all-new and improved iPhone 14. But while 2022 will forever change the iPhone, it might not be changing it for the better, or at least not in the way that many of you will be expecting. First things first though, let's start off with this new MacBook Air, because this should be launching early on in the year in 2022, maybe at the first event in the spring, and this is gonna be an all-new and improved laptop that is one of the biggest changes we've seen to the MacBook Air basically in its entire existence. We should see an all-new design that sports some really beautiful colors come into the MacBook Air, very similar to the iMac. We should have this new white accent color inside on the keyboard and on the bezels around the display, and also some form factor changes, including some ports. MagSafe is now coming to the MacBook Air, and yes, for better or worse, the notch will be there on the new MacBook Air as well. And then of course, the sort of cherry on top that makes this even better is that this will be one of, if not the first Macs of 2022 to debut with the all-new Apple Silicon inside the M2 chip. This should be more powerful, more efficient, basically a better version of the M1 that we saw debut in the MacBook Air and Mac Mini in 2020. Now, while this totally makes sense and is super exciting, I really can't wait to see this all-new MacBook Air, one rumor that has been sort of confusing in regards to Apple's laptop lineup is a report that Apple is going to keep the base entry-level 13-inch MacBook Pro around. Now, currently, this does have an M1 inside, so it's still a good laptop, but it's got the touch bar, it only has USB-C ports, it's got now the older MacBook Pro design. It was, and I guess still is, a good option for the price, but with how good the M1 Pro and M1 Max are in the larger variants, and how good this MacBook Air is shaping up to be with the M2, what's really the reason for keeping around this 13-inch entry-level MacBook Pro, especially if the design doesn't even change at all? Now, as of right now, we don't know what's expected to change with this. We don't know if it's gonna keep the same design or if it's gonna get a more modern design with a notch, but we are expecting to see probably an M2 processor go inside this 13-inch entry-level MacBook Pro. And while that's nice to see, there's a big question now of how this sort of slots into the lineup. Well, there has been some speculation and some rumors that the MacBook Air could get a little bit more expensive, so Apple needs a lower cost option, and maybe this MacBook Pro slots down the line as the cheapest Apple laptop you could buy, targeted at the education market and the business market for companies looking to buy dozens or hundreds of these things or thousands of them. That would make sense. Next up, let's shift gears and talk iPhone. Now, as big of a year as 2022 is and how it's going to change everything, one product that is going to get some very minimal changes is an iPhone model. Not the iPhone 14, but I'm sorry to say the iPhone SE. It's gonna have the exact same iPhone 8 design with the same screen size, the same Touch ID home button, the same single camera setup. It's basically gonna look exactly the same on the outside, while the inside is slated for some improvements. Hopefully a new, more modern A chip, maybe an A14 or an A15 Bionic, which should give you better performance and battery life. Hopefully some improvements to the camera in terms of hardware and or software, and also 5G should be built in to this new low-cost iPhone as well. So if you're looking for a great, simple iPhone that has a lot of the modern features, but is also way more affordable than the iPhone 13, the iPhone SE 3 will be your answer and is coming in 2022. Next up, of course, though, is the more exciting iPhone for 2022, and that is the iPhone 14. Now, stop me if you haven't already heard this or seen these renders, but the iPhone 14 is going to be a radical departure from the iPhone 13, the 12, the 11. Basically, it should be one of the biggest iPhone upgrades we've seen in quite a while. It's gonna have a design very reminiscent to that of the iPhone 4, with circular volume buttons, this two-tone industrial design, the sort of speaker mesh on the bottom. It's gonna look fantastic and also not feature a notch, notch. Instead, Apple is opting, at least according to the rumors, for a hole punch on the iPhone 14 Pro and or the iPhone 14 Pro Max. Inside will also be some significant upgrades as well. We should see an A16 Bionic processor, maybe coupled with a vapor chamber cooling system, hopefully a bigger battery, better 5G support, a new and improved 48 megapixel main camera, and some other odds and ends that should make this one of the biggest iPhone upgrades we have gotten in as basically long as I can remember. The iPhone 14 looks like it's going to be a really big deal. Now, there have been some issues here though, and despite popular belief, I do read the comments below, and I know a lot of you guys are very critical about these decisions in the rumor mill that Apple is going to abandon the notch in favor of the hole punch, and I definitely agree and disagree with a couple of different theories here. First things first, I, like many of you, don't really mind the notch. We've sort of lived with the notch for a number of years now, we've sort of gotten used to it, and it's not that big of a deal. But if Apple did decide to remove the notch and give us some more screen real estate, I for one would be all for that decision, and I would love more screen, basically as much screen as I can get, and I wouldn't mind a little hole punch at the top either. So don't mind the notch now, but if I could have more screen, I'd totally be down for that. Now, the other discussion I've seen pop up a lot recently is if Apple will actually abandon the notch, and there's sort of two parts to this. Should they abandon it, and can they abandon it? Well, in terms of should they, I don't think that Apple sort of has to play by anyone's rules. They can sort of do what they want, and there have been reports, even predating the iPhone 14 leak from John Prosser, that Apple was expected to remove the notch from some iPhone models starting in 2022. This particular report from Ming-Chi Kuo, who has been a very credible Apple analyst who has gotten it more often than not right. So this is not necessarily a new rumor that came out of nowhere. It does seem kind of crazy for Apple to sort of flip-flop like this from one year to the other, but we have heard rumblings for quite some time that Apple was planning to do this. And also in terms of just sheer technology, other companies have already started to experiment with some of this stuff under the display, at least camera tech under the display. I know Face ID is a little bit more complicated than that, but if there is one company that has the money, the R&D, the manpower, the brain power to make this happen, have no doubt, I have no doubt, it's Apple. But while the iPhone 14 is expected to be this really big upgrade, something else is supposed to launch in 2022 that is supposed to be the end of the iPhone, the product that will eventually make the iPhone obsolete. Apple is expected to cannibalize the iPhone with their own new product, and that will start with this Apple mixed reality AR VR headset. Now, I'm sure this is a buzzword you've heard a lot lately. It's this mixed reality headset that's supposed to be Apple's next big thing. It's got cameras and tech and sensors built in. It's gonna have an app store, gesture control, all of this crazy stuff. Little is really known on what this is going to do or exactly how it's going to work or even what it's going to look like or how much it's going to cost. There's still a lot of variables here, but this is expected from analysts and those familiar with the matter to be one of those paradigm shifting technologies that changes everything. That it will eventually get to the point where it's so advanced, where this technology sort of lives on our face, that we can sort of talk to people and visually see things and information on our glasses or whatever the case may be, whatever the device turns into, that it will eventually phase out the iPhone. Not today, not tomorrow, not next year, but this tech that Apple is releasing in 2022 will lay the groundwork for something that will eventually replace the iPhone. This is at least the theory by popular Apple analyst Ming-Chi Kuo, who says that in about 10 years, the iPhone is going to become sort of obsolete and fall to the wayside as this AR, VR mixed reality technology that Apple is introducing next year will sort of take over as the new sort of standard for most people. On one hand, this sounds crazy. It seems like 10 years is not enough time to sort of make this transition. The tech is still in its infancy. It's still sort of expensive. It's still sort of weird. It doesn't make a lot of sense that Apple's going to sort of shift things this fast. But at the same time, if we think about where tech was in 2011, things were a lot different than they are today. The hottest gadget from Apple was the iPhone 4S. Microsoft was still in the Windows Phone game. In fact, 2011 was BlackBerry's best year ever, according to some analysts. And obviously, over the last 10 years, a lot has changed. We've moved on from the 4S. Microsoft is totally done making phones for the most part. And also BlackBerry, who even remembers BlackBerry? A lot can change in 10 years, so the idea of this mixed reality headset sort of taking over the next decade sounds crazy, but also kind of doesn't. Maybe Apple is, in fact, sort of starting slowly, going to eliminate the iPhone. At least That's what some analysts believe. We are also hearing new reports that Apple is expected to launch a new refreshed Mac Mini in 2022 that should have a new design, colors, and lots of great ports on the back, including USB-C, HDMI, USB-A, lots of cool stuff coming to this Mac Mini. And also coming is the long-awaited and long-rumored iMac Pro. This is supposed to have it all. A 27-inch ProMotion mini LED display, a new design with hopefully thinner bezels, lots of great ports on the back, and a new and improved powerful Apple Silicon chip inside. Maybe it's the M1 Pro, the M1 Max, or sort of a turbocharged variant of one or both of these chips. Now, to come back down to reality a little bit more, let's talk about some more concrete things that are actually going to happen in 2022, and that right now is going to be with the iPad. A couple of new iPad models are slated to be released in 2022, an all-new redesigned iPad Pro, an updated iPad Air, and a new base model iPad as well. Starting with the iPad Pro, little is known on what we're going to see with this, probably in the next few months, and according to Mark Gurman, Apple is going to give us a redesigned model of the iPad Pro in 2022. Now, the big question is, what does redesign mean for the iPad Pro? Because it already looks really good. It's got slim bezels, it's got this really nice industrial design. Not exactly sure what Apple will do, but there have been some rumors that Apple is going to give us a glass back on the iPad Pro that allows for wireless charging. As for the iPad Air and the base iPad, these will probably be spec bumps as well, so look out for a new processor inside, maybe some better display tech on the iPad Air that has been a rumor, but probably more under the hood improvements as the designs are still really good, and maybe the base iPad gets a little bit of a tweaked design with some slimmer bezels to bring it a little bit more up to speed with the iPad Air and iPad Pro, but all of this is still sort of up in the air. We also should see an all-new Apple Silicon-powered Mac Pro in 2022, can't wait to see that, and then two more products that I gotta talk about, the all-new Apple Watch Series 8, we got some new info on that, and AirPods Pro 2, some surprising info on that front as well. Starting with Apple Watch Series 8, I still would love to see this radical redesign that was rumored for the Series 7 with sort of the industrial design, the squared off corners, the boxy edges. We're not exactly sure if that will come with the Series 8. This is probably gonna be more of the same, but some new health sensors should be built in to the Apple Watch Series 8. And also, according to Mark Gurman over at Bloomberg and some other sources, Apple is expected to release a ruggedized sport version of the Apple Watch. So not exactly sure what this will look like, but a new Apple Watch model should be launching in 2022 with the Series 8 lineup. And then of course, last but not least, one of my favorite Apple products of all time is AirPods Pro, which was released a number of years ago. So now finally, we should be getting AirPods Pro 2. According to the recent leaks and reports, this will probably be launching at the end of 2022, so probably in the fall, maybe right by the iPhone. And also surprisingly, new reports indicate that Apple is going to give us a design very similar to the new Beats Fit Pro models that sort of don't have a stem on them, which would sort of maybe remove the stem from the AirPods Pro that we have right now. So that is a little sneak peek at Apple's master plan for 2022. It's gonna be a busy year. New Apple Watches, iPhones, redesigned Macs, Apple Silicon, I could go on and on. It's gonna be a really exciting year, but of course, now it's your turn. What are you most excited to see from Apple in 2022? Do you think the iPhone 14 will have a notch? Will it not have a notch? Are you ready for a new iPad Pro? What would a redesigned iPad Pro even look like? And are you excited for any of the Macs coming with the M2 processors inside? Let me know in the comments down below what you are most looking forward to from Apple next year. And I think that's well, as I trip over my words, that's gonna do it for me, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Robert Rosen from the Apple Circle. Thank you again, and I will see you all in the next one.